We have a very important guest joining us now. We have with us Mr. Kaushik Khona. He's the CEO of Airlines. And let's go across and try and understand with him as to what's happening with the airlines. Mr. Kaushik, hi, thank you so much for making time and speaking with us. This is Anisha this side. Well, we were reading a lot of brokerage notes this morning, and the biggest question they were asking is the fact, will Go First fly again? What's your take on that? And also, the street was caught a bit surprised given the fact there was fund infusion made by the promoters just 10-15 days ago. What changed materially in the last 15 days?
First of all, thanks for your time. Thanks for the opportunity to explain what the event happened. I believe, and that's the reason why we have filed application under Section 10, is that Go First has a huge potential to revive and operate again very soon. And that is the reason why, as I said, we have preferred Section 10. Why do we get that confidence? Because we have been operating with the best operating parameters under the operating cost, which is comparable to the industry. And we were only affected by the non-availability of the engines by Pratt Whitney. Had Pratt Whitney complied with their obligations under the contract, we would not have faced this problem since last 3 years. Had Pratt Whitney, even after not complying with the obligation under the contract, had they even complied with the arbitration award, which we were forced to go into, which was rendered on 30th of March, even if they had complied with that order, I think we would have been home and we would have been growing in our operating fleet. I hope you are aware, but I would just like to give you some short summary of what happened. So in the month of March, we applied for emergency arbitration because Pratt Whitney was not complying with any of the contractual obligations. And finally, we got an award which was very favorable. And it also was very clear and unambiguous, asking Pratt Whitney to provide 10 serviceable leased engines per month starting from 28th of April. And just to give you a kind of context, immediately after that, Pratt Whitney wrote to the arbitrator that they will comply to the order in full. And that gave us a lot of confidence that, yes, finally now Pratt Whitney, which is a part of a large Raytheon group, which is a $150 billion group in US, having exposure in defense and aerospace, would now comply with the award. And that is why the promoters, again, committed further funds apart from what they had committed earlier. They gave another 290 crore in the last 10 days of April. And finally, when we found that in spite of the fact that Pratt Whitney said, while we found that Pratt Whitney was trying to find loopholes after that, we again went to the arbitrator. Arbitrator again gave a confirmation, yes, this is correct. And Pratt Whitney should not only give 10 engines as per the past order for every month, they should also induct the 20 engines which are lying with them in their MRO for last more than 8 to 9 months. And further, they should pick up the 44 failed engines which are lying with us in India, and they also should be inducted soon. Having got this award, and that too with a clear finding that no security required from Go First, when no payments required from Go First, I think Pratt Whitney was obliged to follow that order. And when we found that it's trying to kind of deny to abide by that, we went again and we got a fresh order, and that also was favorable. So we thought that by 20th of April, they will provide the 10 engines, and that is the reason why promoters were committed. They still are committed, and they provided 290 crores in the last 10 days. After having seen that Pratt Whitney is trying to again defy, we had to go for the process of what we already filed, and simultaneously we also filed for the execution of the award. And US Delaware Court has admitted, and it has also issued a notice to Pratt Whitney to comply within 3 days by Friday or reply. So I think the turn of event which has happened since 28th of April has actually pushed us to file this application. And the board of the directors of our company, after evaluating various options, have found it necessary that this Section 10 is required. Otherwise, the Pratt Whitney issue may also affect the other events of the company, including the aircraft which are available with us. So I think that's the reason why this action has been taken. And I would be happy to explain that this whole process of Section 10 is actually a process whereby we are trying to find a resolution to see that the issues which have affected us due to Pratt and Whitney are getting resolved.
Yes,
And
sir.
till that time, we get a kind of some relief as a moratorium, which is part of the IBC process.
Okay. So, Somit here, just one question that I had is firstly, were there any other operational issues other than the Pratt and Whitney engine issues? Because given the fact that the aviation industry is going through a very strong times with high fares and strong domestic demand, why such extreme decision of just shutting the operations? Couldn't the promoters just infuse some more funds and wait for the engines to come in?
Well, I think a very relevant question which everybody perhaps would have in their mind. But I would just like to give you a little context. The Pratt and Whitney has been defying their obligations since last 3 years. It's not that, and we have been quite patient. We have been quite collaborative, cooperative with them. They were trying to represent that there are some issues with their issue, but finally we need our engines. So in the meanwhile, the promoters had to fund the liquidity gap, and promoters did at all times. And as you may be aware, promoters funded 3,200 crores in the last 24 months. And I would also be happy to note that in this process, that when we all know that Indian aviation went through very difficult times, the government of India came up with the ECLGS scheme, and we were one of the beneficiaries of that scheme, where we got a sanction of 1,500 crore, of which we already drawn 1,300 crore. So effectively, the promoters and the bank, through the government support, have infused almost 4,500, 4,600 crore in the last 24 months. So I think promoters have never defied or never denied that they would infuse further fund. But the question is, how long? I mean, whether the promoters will continue to fund the losses because the Pratt and Whitney is not giving engines. And it is not just it is a static position. The engines keep on failing. So today I have only 27 operational aircraft out of a total fleet of 55. And tomorrow, with the kind of performance issues, the further engines will fail. So if I have depleting fleet, the losses will further increase rather. And therefore, it is necessary that Pratt and Whitney provides their the engines which they are under obligation in any case. So I think matter was debated, discussed for almost 3 board meetings in the last I would say 5 days, 7 days. And finally, after taking consultation of various experts, the board decided that and evaluated various options, and they found that if we have to protect, because otherwise the lessors were also getting little impatient that what's happening, why the engines are not coming. And therefore, we decided that we should at least protect the company and we should not let the present situation falter further. That is the reason why we thought it is necessary to take this position.
So, for an airline, slots are one of the most prized assets for the company. Now,
Yeah.
is there any arrangement with the government of India that you will get them back as soon as you start your operations, or will these slots be given to any other airlines for now?
Wes, there is we have effectively in India right now, we have 55 aircraft. And therefore, we have a parking slots for all the 55 aircraft. We have also operational slots for the flights which we operate. The slots are not taken away immediately just because I cancel the flights for 2 days or 5 days. The slots are basically an enabling for any airline to plan for its affairs for a long-term basis. And therefore, I don't expect or I don't foresee that the slots will be taken away, because it's a coercion, or I would say a force majeure issue which has affected us. And we are therefore of the firm belief that the airport operators would not take away the slots, because it's a temporary issue, which I think we'll be able to resume the operations very soon. It's not something that we are looking at a grounding of the aircraft or grounding of the fleet forever. And I'm sure the resolution I would say the resolution is the foremost I would say requirement of this resolution process, and we will be able to hopefully get back to the operations soon. So I don't expect any loss of slots, and we will continuously represent for that continuity.
So for now, you have stopped taking any ticket bookings till May 15, but then it's very highly unlikely that the issue would get resolved by that date. So any timelines that you have planned, at least by this date, this issue needs to get resolved and we need to get back on flying again?
So I think that's precisely, perhaps you're well noticed, the fact that we are hoping that operations will resume soon, and therefore we are taking short-term calls. And once we get an ability to get a kind of NCLT order, we will be again taking a call as to when we can resume immediately, subject to the process which has to be followed. Therefore, we are taken call only right now till 15th of May. However, we understand that we will be reviewing the position on a every 3 to 4 days basis, looking at what is the emerging situation on how the applications have been now treated under the NCLT. So I think we will be keeping not only the travel partners, but we will be keeping all our passengers also informed as to how we are planning and how the operations can resume soon once we get the order.
So, Mr. Khona, I'm sure you're talking about the best case scenario wherein we are expecting a resolution to happen. But in the 5 to 7 days when you talked about multiple board meetings happening, what was the worst case scenario that was discussed? Because I'm sure that is also one of the scenarios that the board might have taken into cognizance as well. Could you talk to us about what could be the worst case scenario? How long can the airlines stay grounded? Because the street is worried, is it going to go the Jet Airways way?
Well, I don't think that's the situation right now we are in, because we have been operating and our ability to operate, and we have complete infrastructure, and not only that, we have been operating at a most efficient parameters and the least cost. So we are not actually building up the cost. We are trying to remain within the affordable limits. You have a very relevant question. How long can this take place? Well, obviously it's subject to the process. I cannot comment on that, whether it will take 1 week or 1 month. But I'm sure, with looking to the criticality of the situation, I'm sure we will be able to perhaps take this sooner than later. And we will continuously, as I said, we'll update you with the progress which we will have.
So the debt of around 6,500 crore rupees, should the lenders be worried? Is there any promoter guarantee towards this debt?
Well, I think it's all the bank loans are not only secured by the company assets, but I think what is more relevant, and I think the bankers are very comfortable, is that they have a collateral over and above the company assets, collateral in the form of unencumbered land of more than 94 acres in a prime location in Bombay, which is valued a significant amount. And I believe if at all it comes to the situation of recovering the money, the banks are completely covered. And I don't think banks are therefore concerned. It should be concerned, because we have been the kind of additional security is a huge prime asset, and it has earlier the value of this asset was assessed at around 3,000 crore. I believe with the recent changes in the real estate and the improvement on the development potential, this amount of value of 3,000 crore will be further increased. And if at all we were to kind of securitize that, it will certainly be more than perhaps the bank exposure.
No, I understand that there are collaterals in place, and they do have enough securitization in place as well as far as their exposure is concerned. But Mr. Khona, the worry is also that the lenders also have been caught a bit unaware, because what we are hearing from the bankers is they haven't made any provisions. They didn't have any, inkling of perhaps the operations being halted, at least at this point of time. Have you been servicing your debt regularly? And going forward, whatever is due in the next 2 to 3 months, could you talk to us about what's due and what's the, expectation with respect to servicing that debt?
I think first of all, the major bank loans are, I would say almost all bank loans except for the ECLGS, they are all working capital facilities. There is only the interest which is to be funded or which is to be serviced every month. So there is repayment pressure is very limited. The repayment is only in respect of the ECLGS, and that is also has a moratorium of 2 years, and balance repayment has to be done in 4 years. So the presently monthly repayment is only in the range of around 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs. So first of all, the repayment pressure is not significant. If we talk about the bank's kind of future liability for next 2 to 3 months, that is, as I said, limited to the interest and the repayment exposure, which is small. And I believe that if the resolution process is immediately started, we will be able to at least meet those demands once we start operations. Although it all depends on how soon we are able to get the engines, because finally, if I have to be kind of viable, engines are the key. I mean, we continue to fund through the promoters fund, through the government guaranteed ECLGS fund, but as a long-term viability, engines are required. And I believe if Pratt & Whitney comes back and honors its contract and honors its award, I think that should be better way to work.
Land asset that you were just talking about, just wanted some clarification on this front. Has this guarantee been given by the Wadia Group promoters or Bombay Burma, which is a separately listed company here?
No, it is all Wadia Group promoters. There is no public, public limited company exposure on guarantee. It's basically, as I said, is a security, and it is a privately held lend into a separate SPV, which has no other exposure, no other liability, and therefore it is a completely clean security provided to the banks.
So now we have a debt of around 6,500 crore plus there is operational creditors. So what is the kind of resolution that you're expecting to come out from NCLT here? That could be in your favor. What is your expectations from NCLT here?
No, I think it will be too premature for me to think about it. We are right now trying to get the revival of the operations sooner. The immediate ask or the task is to get the Pratt & Whitney engine, and therefore we are all going all out to see that the award is actually kind of getting executed so that the engines are available, which will be the surety to at least the airline becoming more, I would say, sustainable in the long run.
Mr. Khona, just a follow-up that I had in mind, what are the various options available when you are talking about the resolution that you're talking about? Is a stake sale by promoter on the cards? Are you looking in for any strategic investors? Are you reaching out to other airlines? What kind of resolution plans you have in mind, or options at least which are there on the table?
Well, I think frankly, again, it's not my resolution plan. It's not the company resolution plan. We will be going by the process. Section 10 means the company and the promoters are willing to give away the management to the resolution professional, and therefore, and the promoters are therefore shown their willingness that if there is anything which requires, as per the resolution professional and as required and authorized by the committee of creditors, which is a normal process, the promoters are therefore willing to take any call on this matter. So I think it will be right now not very correct, or it will be a little premature for me to give any kind of what will be the resolution plan, because it's still early days. It's not even right now admitted. So I think let's take the process and step by step. The first step we will expect is to the admission, and then I think the resolution professional has to take a call. And by that time, as a company, we are trying to get, I think the most important for me is a Pratt & Whitney engines award and execution of it.
Exactly, that's the question, Mr. Khona, because does NCLT really have powers over Pratt & Whitney? Because the Singapore arbitration was already out, it was already in your favor. What is now needed to get Pratt & Whitney to really honor their commitments or honor the arbitration? Because I'm not sure if NCLT would have any legal sanctity over, Pratt & Whitney.
No, I think what we are doing is not NCLT is, we are not looking at NCLT. We are looking at execution of the award in the respective regions, which respective jurisdiction. So the first jurisdiction, as I already told, we have filed this award for execution with the Delaware court at US. We are identifying various other jurisdictions which can be spread across various jurisdictions into US or Europe and Japan. And therefore, our endeavor will be to get execution done through those jurisdictions and get the engines, because ultimately there are three sources of getting engines. One is the spare lease engines, second is our own repaired engines, and third is the sale engines, because ultimately Pratt & Whitney in its own admission have also mentioned that they are going to provide for more than 40 engines for the spare during this calendar year of 2023. So I think there is enough an ability by Pratt & Whitney to provide those engines, which we have to therefore pursue that. by way of execution of the award.
Well, sir, India must be a bigger customer for Pratt and Whitney overall, because there are many other airlines who are using those engines. So, has the government of India, have you spoken to the government of India, or are you expecting any support from the government of India to resolve this issue?
Well, I think government has been very supportive. I would not like to deal into what discussions we had on the Pratt and Whitney issue, but I would really acknowledge the fact that the government has been very proactive. They've been trying to see if things can be resolved very soon, and I really give a huge credit to the entire ministry for helping us on this whole process. I believe that the process is more to do with the kind of corporate governance of a Raytheon group, and I hope that they come to senses.
We do understand that Pratt and Whitney engine issue is one of the major reason why the company has shut its operations. But lack of fund is also one of the reason why the company's promoter are not willing to put in more funds, and hence the company cannot operate going forward. So how is your case different than Jet Airways, a situation that we had seen earlier?
I think one thing which we should perhaps really analyze and understand. I have been grounded since, not grounded, but like the aircraft on ground has been in the range of around 35% for the last 2 years, 2020, 21 and 21, 22. If you look at 2020 to 23, on an average, it has been 40%. In the last 6 months, it is more than 40%. Now, if I have a fleet which is supposed to operate, and I have 40%, 50% of the fleet grounded, it's impossible that anybody can make money. And therefore, I don't think that the fund issue is a separate issue. Fund issue has been created by Pratt and Whitney engine issue. Had the Pratt and Whitney not behaved like this, had the Pratt and Whitney complied with their obligations in time, this issue would not have arisen, and we would have been far more profitable. I would just like to give you indication as what is the impact of this loss because of the engines. And we have got an evaluation by very well-known, I would say, a firm, where they have evaluated the loss which we have suffered till date, starting from June 2020. April, May 2020 was anyways non-operational period. Even if we calculate from June 2020 till date, we have lost almost $1 billion because of the aircraft on ground compensation which we should be getting. So I think the losses are tremendous, and it's only because of Pratt and Whitney. So I don't think there is any different reason for losses. And if at all we had these engines available, we would have been far more profitable. In fact, if you look at the compensation alone is around claim of compensation alone is around 8,000 crores. So I think it's a huge dent on the Indian aviation caused by Pratt and Whitney. You also referred to some other airlines in India. I would not like to comment on it. Yeah, but fact is, I think based on the Pratt and Whitney performance, I think every airline in India has been suffering.
If I can just get into a bit more detail, because I understand the entire mood issue is stemming from the fact that Pratt & Whitney's engine delivery was delayed. But just coming back to the creditors, could you confirm to us which are the bankers that you have at this point of time? Central Bank of India, Bank of Baroda, what is the exposure? And also the inter-corporate loans that you have with respect to Bombay Burma, what's the exposure?
So as I said, first of all, these are all public domain. The consortium of banks is led by Central Bank. We have other banks, which is Bank of Baroda and IDBI Bank, and we are all working in the consortium. There is very, I would say, very limited exposure on the ICD, which is we got some immediate emergency funds for making some payments, which is limited. Otherwise, what is more relevant is that out of 3,200 crore, which was infused by the promoters in last 2 years, I think almost 845 crores was equity, almost 500 crore was quasi-equity, which is compulsory convertible, and more than 1,900 crore was a fund-based limit arranged by the promoters through their security. So I think the commitment of the promoters is far more visible on that front. And the bankers, we are also, I would say, well governed by the consortium of the banks.
So the remaining fleet of yours, that's all of it is on lease. So what is the kind of arrangement here with the lessors? Will they not be giving away those aircraft to any other operators at this moment, or keeping it reserved for you? How does it work here?
Out of the 55, 5 are CEOs and balance 50 are NEOs. And out of 50 NEOs, almost 20, 28 of the NEOs are grounded. So I am sure lessors are also not very keen to take the aircraft, because finally these aircraft don't have engines on that, and the engines obviously are awaited. So I believe that lessor, and simultaneously we have been interacting with lessors. We have been making those payments on a regular basis to some extent to all the lessors, and therefore we are in continuously dialogue with lessors to keep them briefed about the development. I hope that lessors would not take any kind of adverse call. And the normal terms, I mean, you asked for the terms. These are operating lease, and they are on normal operating lease terms with a term of anywhere between 8 to 12 years. Some of the old aircraft which we took in 2016-17 were 8 years, and recent ones are all 12 years. So I think these are the terms broadly, and lessors we are continuously in touch with.
So for an airline, image is also of utmost importance. So say suppose you receive a favorable outcome coming out of the NCLT, and you starting your operations back again. So how do you expect, or do you even expect customers to again use Go First going forward, because they have seen such kind of issues coming in from the airline at right now?
I think first and foremost, I would like to emphasize the fact that my crew, whether it is cabin crew, cockpit crew, or ground staff, the service levels are far more superior, and I am very, I would say, proud of them. Ultimately, customer is looking for two things. One is the cost, second is the service. And on both these counts, we have been competitive with any of the airline in the country. And while it's an aberration, I mean, I understand that presently the customers are put to inconvenience, which is completely, I would say, not planned. It has happened by way of some urgent emergency measure which we had to take, for which we are very, I would say, we are very sorry to the customers, and we are trying to find a resolution immediately. So with the kind of interaction which we have, with the kind of service levels which we have, I believe all our passengers are far more happy to be with us. I'm sure it is a matter of short term, and customers do realize that ultimately the services services and the cost are prime. So once we are back, I hope these parameters will continue.
Okay, Mr. Khona, you answered from the point of view of the stakeholder, which is customers, but the other stakeholders are also employees. Could you confirm to us whether the salaries, etc., and the payments to employees are being made on time and will continue in the month of May going forward as well?
See, as I said, we have the liquidity issue. We have the cash constraints because of the hole created by Pratt. Therefore, there are challenges where we have not been able to pay some of the payments which we are due. That is the reason why I took a call that we should now, at least till the time we get a clarity on the Pratt & Whitney engines, we should go for a Section 10 application. So there are delays. These delays are obviously going to be addressed once the RP is appointed. And I would like to, I would say one more important thing which I would like to place on record is, while this whole process was going on, and as I said, promoters infused 290 crores in April, we are also eligible for drawing of the ECLGS of 208 crore out of that, because 1:1 kind of funding which is already sanctioned by the banks. I believe once the RP is in place, he will have an ability, subject to obviously his evaluation and the committee of creditors decision, he will have immediate ability to draw that 208 crores. There are certain more avenues of some incomes. I believe as soon as the issue is kind of the RP is appointed, those issues could be resolved very soon. And there will be some funds even remaining, so that the immediate day-to-day operations on cash and carry also can start. That's the that's the reason why I thought this was very relevant, that promoters thought that we should not draw this ECLGS and make payments right now, because ultimately the resolution professional should get some kind of liquidity when he starts his operation. So I think this is something which we already, the promoters have and the directors have already planned, that if there is a resolution, then there should be ability to immediately start the operations.
Rightly, sir. A final question here. As you were just mentioning that there are liquidity issues in the company. So suppose there's a resolution that comes in your favor, and post that also there's a fund infusion required for the company to just start off its operations again. So will the promoter at that point, given the fact that Pratt & Whitney engines are also in, will the promoter at that point infuse funds in the company to start operations again?
Well, I can only tell you, whenever I have felt the need for the funds, the promoters have been forthcoming. They understand that the situation is, while we are trying to get the best operating results, there is a funding gap, and they have always been forthcoming to support. They have been giving the funds, as I already mentioned. I am sure once once we have a resolution and Pratt & Whitney issue is resolved, and if the process as the resolution professional may decide, I don't think there is any lack of commitment from the promoters, and I'm sure promoters will evaluate at that time how do we take it forward. Promoters have never denied that they are exiting. Promoters have never denied. Even as I think that the last 10 days infusion of 290 crore itself should give you a kind of indication that even when the promoters have felt the necessity, every time they have come out to support the operations of the company.
Well, sir, just before we wrap up, I would request you to give answer a couple of questions in Hindi also for our Hindi viewers. So firstly, मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगा कि May 5th तक आपने अभी तक operations बंद किए हैं, May 15 तक आपका कोई टिकट बुकिंग नहीं है, तो क्या चांसेस है GoAir 15 मई के बाद वापस से अपने operations शुरू कर सकता है?
हम ये पूरा एफर्ट कर रहे हैं, ट्राई कर रहे हैं कि जल्दी से जल्दी अगर एनसीएलटी में इसका एडमिशन हो जाए तो मॉरेटोरियम जो एप्लीकेशंस है वो हमको मिले, और उसके बाद रेजोल्यूशन प्रोफेशनल एक प्रोसेस होता है उसमें अपॉइंट हो जाए. हमने ऑलरेडी हमारे तरफ से रेजोल्यूशन प्रोफेशनल, इंटरिम रेजोल्यूशन प्रोफेशनल का रिकमेंडेशन किया है, जिसको काफी एविएशन का नॉलेज है, तो उसको लर्निंग कर्व भी कम रहेगा. तो हमारे हिसाब से अगर ये एडमिट जल्दी हो जाता है तो 15 मई में भी तक भी हमारे पास एबिलिटी, शायद पॉसिबिलिटी है कि हम चालू कर सके. लेकिन इसका पूरा कैलेंडर जो है, टाइम टेबल है, वो सभी एनसीएलटी के प्रोसेस के हिसाब से नक्की होगा, और मैं तभी आपको बता पाऊंगा कि वंस ये एप्लीकेशन जब एडमिट हो जाता है और रेजोल्यूशन प्रोफेशनल अपॉइंट हो जाता है, वो तुरंत ही होता है, उसी टाइम होता है, तो उसके साथ साथ हम रिवाइवल का भी डिस्कशन साथ में कर सकते हैं.
आखिरी सवाल सर, बैंक्स के करीब 6,500 करोड़ ड्यू है, तो इसका क्या प्रोसेस होगा? क्या बैंक्स को कोई गारंटी मिला है? क्या गारंटी है कि उनके पैसे वापस मिल जाएंगे? और आगे चल के अगर GoAir के ऑपरेशंस शुरू हो जाते हैं तो क्या प्रमोटर्स फंड इन्फ्यूजन करेगा कंपनी में?
वेल, बैंक ने जो लोन दिया है उसमें से टोटल जो बैंक का फैसिलिटी है वो 2,650 करोड़ है, जो कि वर्किंग कैपिटल लिमिट है, जिसके लिए पूरा सिक्योरिटी कंपनी के एसेट्स का भी है, और जैसे हमने बताया कोलेटरल सिक्योरिटी के हिसाब से लैंड का वैल्यू भी है, जो एक 94 एकड़ का बड़ा पार्सल, एक वन पीस पार्सल है, जो कि जिसका मार्केट वैल्यू काफी अच्छा है, वो बैंक के पास है. उसके अलावा बैंक ने जो अभी रिसेंटली ACLGS के अंडर जो हमको 1,300 करोड़ का हमने लोन लिया है, उसका पूरा गारंटी भी गवर्नमेंट का है, और उसका कोलेटरल भी बैंक को हमने दिया हुआ है बाय वे ऑफ अ सेकंड चार्ज ऑन द सेम प्रॉपर्टी. बाकी का जो लोन है वो प्रमोटर्स का लोन है, जिसका कोई सिक्योरिटी कंपनी ने नहीं दिया है. वो प्रमोटर्स ने लोन दिया है एज अ पार्ट ऑफ देयर प्रमोटर्स कमिटमेंट, जो 3,200 करोड़ में से, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, 845 करोड़ इक्विटी था, 500 करोड़ अगेन इक्विटी है जैसे कि प्रेफरेंस शेयर्स है, और बाकी का जो फंड्स है वो एज अ लोन फैसिलिटी है, जो कि बैंक के लोन में आपको दिख रहा है. उसका कोई भी लायबिलिटी अभी, रीपेमेंट का लायबिलिटी अभी कोई नहीं है ड्यू. इसलिए बैंक का खाली दो दो जो मैंने लोन बताया वो 3,900 करोड़ के करीब का लोन है, जिसके लिए सिक्योरिटी एडवोकेट हमारे पास है दिया हुआ।
Okay, Mr. Khona, really appreciate you joining us today on ET Now and candidly answering as to what you expect the resolution plan is likely to take shape, what's the expectation of the revival, and how you're dealing with the crisis at this point of time. So clearly the delay in the engines that they have got from Pratt Whitney has been the issue why the company has not been able to operate its airlines, and that's why they had to file a voluntary for insolvency proceedings under Section 10. They are hopeful there will be a resolution soon. But remember, the hearing is expected to happen on May 4th, and they have stopped the bookings in the interim till May 15th. So we'll have to watch as that story develops, because for now there's a lot of chaos at the airports, and we have been hearing from the passengers that they have been dealing with a lot of issues on ground as well. With that, we'll slip into a very short break. Don't go anywhere. News and updates continue on ET Now.